Hey guys, it's Daniel. The following is a clip from my interview with Steve Kravac, one of the co-producers on Blink-182's debut record Cheshire Cat. If you want to see the full interview, it's linked below. When you recorded Blink those first 3 days, you were the only person in the studio with them, right?
Yeah. No, I don't even recall if anybody came by.
When the band showed up, like, what was that like? Like, they just showed up and they just kind of rushed the gear out of their van? Like, how was that arrival?
You know, the band arrival is always a thing, right? Like, if you don't know them before, they didn't look like they had gotten much sleep the night before. They definitely looked a little scruffy. You know, and I'd maybe only spoken with them a day or two. I think I might have spoken with Mark on the phone just to advance, to say, I'm coming. This is what we're bringing. Like, I had I believe one conversation, like they were calling to confirm the time was still booked or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
And so, they weren't in the business of making records, right, at that point of their lives. So it was a situation of like, okay, guys, well, we got a lot to do. So let's just try and get in, hit the ground running. We had 3 days. And the guys showed up Friday at noon. And I was there already, put on some coffee, was getting the place ready to go, setting up some microphones, trying to get us ahead of the ball a little bit. And so the guys showed up. And the first thing that I was sort of looking at, that was kind of like, ooh, like their gear doesn't look that good. The first thing I was just sort of a little taken back because I could see they didn't have much gear, and West Beach didn't have any gear. They really didn't have any back line to speak of. The studio didn't have a drum kit. It didn't have guitar amps, Yeah. And so I was sort of looking and going, okay, well, we'll just see what we got going on. So I said, well, guys, what do we got to get done this weekend? And they look at me and they go, we got to record and mix 17 songs. And I was just sort of like, what?
Yeah. And from what I understand, they also showed up like 3 hours late, right?
They may have. I don't recall the exact timing, but that is possible. That is possible. I know I was early because it was one of the very first sessions I did at West Beach. And so I didn't know the studio that well, and I wanted to make sure that I was prepared, and comfortable, and I was kind of getting us ahead of the game a little bit. So I was sort of able to get them in and get going, but like then you're sort of confronted with, okay, well, how do you record and mix 17 songs in 3 days? Like, I'm not really sure how you do that. So we just kind of started recording. I guess one thing about it was the short songs were short. So that kind of made it easier to focus on kind of trying to get a performance together where they could get through the tune. Everybody was sort of, as I recall, everybody was pretty decent with their instruments, Nobody was super flailing. And we'd get through a take or two and you would go, you could probably do it better, Or we listen to it and go, maybe try and tighten this part up here a little bit, But we were trying to get good takes down, And at one point I told the guys, like after the first day or something, I said, I know Eric that runs Cargo. I said, I can call him and tell him sort of where we're at and just see if we can get one more day. Because at least if we had another, 12 or 14 hours, we could do some more overdubs or we could kind of get more out of this, because it was so much to do in so little time. And I sort of realized that unless we sort of pulled off a miracle, I knew that the guys weren't going to come out of it with a finished record that weekend. We could do our best to do it, but so I started scrounging around the studio. We got drums in place and bass, and I think we probably kept some of the bass off the floor and kind of punched in. I don't know that we went back and did like big sections of overdubbing bass, but guitar, all we had was this, the band had brought like this sort of cheesy Fender, solid state head and a cabinet. There just was not much tone to it, and I don't know that we had much in the way of guitars either. I had just moved to LA, so I hadn't brought all my gear down yet. And basically Cargo had sort of, in a way, kind of set them up to fail, like they didn't budget for any rental gear. They didn't give them enough time to do the songs justice and focus. And the thing was, the songs are really good. Like, all the songs were really good. Like, I could tell right off the bat as the guys were jamming through them, like, hey, we have something here. You know, this could really be something. And the songs were funny, you know? They had a sense of humor to them. They didn't take themselves too seriously. Like I was talking about Guttermouth, same sort of thing. I was like, that's cool, you know?
So you think that Cargo didn't want to have them sign? Like, they didn't want them to succeed?
No, I think that they wanted them to, you know, get a record out. But I just think that they were hoping that they could do it for the bare minimum.
Gotcha.
And that, you know, whatever it was, that would be good enough, you know? But the thing was that punk rock was really changing at that point. And it was starting to really break open. It was starting to be played on the radio. So all of a sudden, like, punk rock records sort of had to sound good. And you couldn't get away just like throwing something on tape and going, oh, it's the feel, it's the charm. Like, that wasn't flying anymore. The goal was to sell lots of records. Yeah. You know, just like any other business, be good at your business, right? And so I think Cargo just figured, well, we'll just throw this against the wall and see what happens, you know? So, you know, over the course of the 3-day weekend, we fought to try and get something going as best we could. And I scrounged around the place. I actually found a Marshall. And I'm like, okay, well, this is something. Like, we could plug that into something. And didn't really have any pedals. And it was like an older Plexi, so those run very clean. You know, it's a very loud amp, but it's very clean. It's not a gainy amp. And that helped actually sort of build part of what we had as the guitar sound. We kind of used some of that Marshall as a clean tone and then took the Fender, which was a grainier kind of, you know, more distorted, more gainy tone, and then kind of rigged up the two amps and blended them together. Blended the two cabinets and the two amps with a couple of mics together. That was just sort of enough to get it to the place where, like, it didn't sound, like, it sounded like a guitar.
Yeah, I get you, yeah.
It sounded like a guitar in a punk rock band. It didn't sound like a too clean classic rock sound, and it didn't sound like a blown out metal sound. It kind of sounded like something that, well, you could maybe hang your hat off of that. Maybe if you know, doubled it up or did something else to it and, you know, maybe worked on it to spread it in the mix or something, but it was something, you know? And that's sort of like what making that record from my end, the tracks that I worked on and the work that I did on it, that was sort of what making that record was about. Just with Scotch tape and baling wire, right? Like, pull together whatever you could to get, you know, something on tape that sounded good. Fortunately, I think, you know, I was talking about the songs were good, the melodies were good, the lyrics were good, they were funny. Like, just having that as the centerpiece to a lot of the songs, I think helps pull that record off.
Yeah, I hear you.
And you know, it's not a highly technical record, you know? It's a punk rock record, you know?
Yeah.
From what I understand, you guys, I think after the first 3 days, from what I've read, I'm not sure if this is correct, you guys did some overdubs after the fact, like at another time. Is this true?
Yes. So, but I wasn't involved in those sessions, okay? I had tried to get in touch with Eric down at Cargo and said, well, is there something else we can do? And I guess they just went back and forth, and they were like, we're going to do a little bit more recording, but we're going to do it in San Diego. And so they used a local engineer, a guy that went by the name of O, like the letter O. And he was able to get the guys back into the studio for a couple days and sweeten up the guitars a little bit, tighten things up. I think they were able to do a little bit more vocals here and there too. And then get a mix of that, which sounded like a more complete idea, you know? So basically what they probably kept was all the stuff that we did, the drums, the bass, the guitars, then added some additional guitars on top of it. They clearly somehow got their hands on another guitar rig or maybe another guitar or something that sounded a little bit better. And then beefed that up and got some mixes from that. And so that's how the production ended, you know? Like, I did do the mixes that we were supposed to do. They asked us to turn in mixes, so we did turn in mixes. You know, and of course those never got used. And I don't know to this day where those are. There's a reel of them somewhere.
You gotta find those, man.
Gathering dust somewhere. That might be kind of funny to listen to.
Yeah, you have to find those. That'd be hilarious.
But then I didn't hear a lot about the record or the band after that. Like, it just kind of went away. And West Beach was kind of picking up business. We were working on that Punk and Drublick record. And because of that, we were getting more bookings. So all of a sudden, like, a lot was going on, and I was working on a lot of different sessions. And then one day, I'm with a friend and we're driving down Melrose. I think we're going to go get some lunch or something. And so we're driving down Melrose, actually just a couple of blocks away from West Beach, from the studio where we attract that stuff. And a car pulls up beside us and their windows are down and they're playing a record and it sounds, vaguely punk rock. And I'm sort of listening as both cars are sitting at the light. I'm going, that sounds familiar. Like, I know that song. That's so weird. And so we lean over and we go, what are you listening to? Who is that? And the girl in the car leans over and she goes, it's Blink. We love them.
That's awesome, man. Was it the record you worked on?
Yeah, it was that record. And so I had remembered the song from whatever song was playing in their car. I remembered, maybe it was Eminem's or something. And I remembered the song from the session because it was a good song and it stuck in my head, but it was just so random that the next interaction with that song was like on two cars sitting on Melrose. Like, you'd think, oh, well, we mailed them a copy of the record because they worked on it or something. I didn't really hear anything, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's out. Okay. And then it started actually kind of taking off and K-Rock started playing it, which was bizarre because even the refined, version of how that record was mixed at the end, it's still a pretty edgy sounding record, and it's not, those aren't real, what you'd call radio mixes, but you slap radio compression on it and turn it up, it sounds okay. And they still play a cut or two off that record on K-Rock every once in a while. They'll play it like on Labor Day weekend, Yeah. Oh, Blast from the Past, Blink-182 and Eminem's, they do play it every once in a while. But it was pretty crazy when it kind of started getting more play on the radio, and you'd turn on the radio and hear the song that you worked on every once in a while. Their band just took off after that. They signed a major deal. And they were putting out record touring, putting out a record touring, putting out a record touring, they were nonstop for 10 years after that.
Were you surprised to see them explode like that?
Maybe a little bit. Not because I didn't think that they had talent. There was no doubt that I realized that Mark had it in spades after working 5 minutes with him. I knew he had it. But it was more just because the songs that we worked on were kind of locker room or jocular in a lot of ways that I thought, I don't know, do chicks listen to this in their car, right? Apparently they do. Do guys who drive pickup trucks listen to this song? Apparently they do. And you need girls to buy your record, and you need guys that drive pickup trucks to buy your record if you want to sell millions of records. You literally, you have to, you've got to really appeal to a very broad base of listenership. And strangely, that record has worked in that respect. And it continues to sell. I think the last time I checked, it sold 400 or 450,000 copies now, something like that.
That's awesome.
So who knows?
Hey, congratulations for having worked on that. That's really cool.
Who knows? It may go gold one day.
I'm sure it would. Eventually over the course of time.
Eventually. But it was a good project to be involved in. It was a good experience because it was an experience in adversity, and trying to get something happen so quickly, right? And I'm just glad that the core of what we built was able to serve, and the work that O was able to do later was to bring it to fruition. I always like to say a good idea is a developed idea. And I think at least that we built the bedrock for it so that they were able to sweeten it and then go, you know what? This is going to work. Let's get it out there, And it did. It totally did.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations on having accomplished that.
Thanks.